15-month war between Israel and Hamas has fractured opinion around the world, pitting those who are pro-Palestine and those who are pro-Israel fiercely against each other. One of the most visible people breaking through the noise is 34-year-old Israeli influencer Hen Mazzig. He's been the target of fierce criticism, but that hasn't stopped him. He spends his time between Tel Aviv, London and LA, where he leads workshops and virtual seminars advising pro-Israel celebrities like Deborah Messing, who want to use their platforms to speak out in support of the Jewish state.
Now, with the ceasefire hanging in the balance after it was announced yesterday, the question remains about the current mood in Israel and what is going to happen next. Joining us now from London is Senior Fellow at the Tel Aviv Institute, Hen Mazzig. Thank you so much for being on Rising once again.
Thanks for having me again.
So what is the mood in Israel as this deal appeared to be going through, but we are now, of course, grappling with reporting that it has not yet been voted on by Israeli leadership. My understanding is there would certainly be relief at hostages finally coming home, but of course a reticence to give any sort of deal with Hamas, considered a terrorist group by Israelis. What is your view on what's taking place?
I think that majority of Israelis support a deal to release the hostages. It's something that many Israelis have been advocating for. We wanted our hostages home, and Israel has went to such a length and agreed to so many conditions that the terrorist organization Hamas has set forth, doing things that I can't even imagine that America would ever do if there was a similar situation of hostages. I mean, there were similar situations of hostages being held by terror groups, and the American policy was often we don't negotiate with terrorists. But it's different because Israel is a tiny country with 10 million citizens, and I think that we all know people that have been affected by this war. We all know people that might be related to hostages. There's always a second or third degree of separation. And that's why it's so personal for us. And while many critics were saying that this deal is perhaps Israel saying to the terrorists that this is an act that they should continue taking, stealing hostages, I think that it's a different message. The message that myself and many Israelis are receiving today is that Israel would do everything they can to release those hostages. There's a baby that is celebrating 2 years in captivity. It's just going to turn 2 this Saturday. We need those hostages back home. So I mean, like most Israelis, accept this deal and celebrate the fact that our family and our loved ones are coming back home.
Do we know what the sticking points are that Prime Minister Netanyahu is alluding to? Because I have seen him talk about the idea that he contends that Hamas is erecting some sort of last-minute obstacle. Hamas representatives deny doing that, but without getting too deep into the granular detail, do we know generally what those sticking points are?
I wouldn't take anything that is coming out of the Prime Minister's office or Hamas at this critical stage as seriously as I would the mediators. So if you listen to John Kirby from the State Department, he mentioned today, just recently, that those conditions or those issues that they still have in the negotiation are very minor, and that the deal is still standing, and they're going to carry on with it. So I think that there probably are issues, but I don't think that it's anything that will stop this deal from taking place. And we needed this specific timing, this time frame between Biden leaving office and Trump assuming office to be together and engage in solving this conflict, to pressure all parties. And I think that's the reason that we're seeing this deal. And I think that this timing will not come back. So I do think that this deal would see it through.
Donald Trump, at least from the American standpoint, is currently getting, I would say, the lion's share of the credit, even from people who are very critical in American media of Donald Trump, saying it seems to be his intervention that is making this deal take place. Do you have any insights along those lines?
I think that he should get credit. There's definitely influence from Trump and his team on this deal. But again, I don't think that it would have happened by Trump alone. I think that the long-term pressure and involvement from the current leadership in America has definitely contributed to it. And I think that it's as I said, it's this specific time of having one president leaving and another one coming in, both of them taking credit for this deal. So I'm definitely certain that Trump had a lot to do with it, but I don't think it's Trump alone that secured this deal.
In relation to the Israeli domestic political situation as it pertains to this deal, obviously Mr. Netanyahu leads a coalition government. Some of the members of that coalition are to his right. Itamar Ben-Gvir, the National Security Minister, and Bezalel Smotrich, the Finance Minister, are the two most prominent, I would say, or most often cited. Do we know, does Netanyahu, are there concerns there about that government falling if they oppose this deal particularly fiercely? Have they talked about, I know they have criticised the deal, but have they talked about quitting the government or not? Where do those kind of dynamics stand?
Yeah, they absolutely have spoken about withdrawing from the government. If we're talking specifically about those two ministers, Minister Ben-Gvir and Minister Smotrich, have both opposed the deal. Recently, we heard that Smotrich said that he would stay in the government and his condition is that the war would continue after the deal for the release of the hostages. Ben-Gvir, on his part, has said that he was the reason that Israel did not achieve this deal because he's been pushing against it for months. It's much like any government around the world. You have those extreme fractions that often are the loudest and making and have too much influence in my eyes. I think that Netanyahu is definitely concerned about his political future, and I'm certain that Trump taking office is another issue that Netanyahu is considering. He wants to maintain a relationship with Trump. I think he's been waiting for that for this specific president for years now. And for him, I think he's not going to do anything to jeopardize his relationship with Trump before Trump took office. And Trump does really want this deal. So in a way, I think that Trump's taking office as president is actually pressuring Netanyahu to secure this deal and to see it through.
And one final question before we wrap this up. And in terms of opinion within Israel, obviously people are going to have different views about this deal. It's a multi-phase deal. There are various conditions on both sides that have to be met. But how would you characterize the mood among Israelis that you know about it? Are people relieved, happy, wary? What's the sentiment just among people in your circle?
Israelis around me are celebrating this deal. We are tired. We want our hostages back. We want to see them home, and we want the bloodshed to end. Every week we hear about dozens of soldiers that are being killed in this war, and we want it to end. But while I'm seeing videos coming out of Gaza of Gazans celebrating together with Hamas that came out of the tunnels where they hide under civilians and celebrating this as if it's a victory, which is a very bizarre thing for me to think that people that have suffered so much and what some have called it a genocide are now celebrating in the streets and as if they won something. How can you celebrate a victory this way? in the meantime, in Israel, the people are broken. The people just want this to end, and we want it to end not to secure victory, and that's why we were willing to give over thousands of Hamas terrorists in exchange for innocent lives, or in exchange for a baby. But I think that's the difference between the two sides, and I think that the important part here is to look into the future of Gaza and look into the future of Gazans, and not. I think that's something that we have been failing so much, the Israel and the West, in securing a future for them where they are safe, where Hamas is not involved, when Hamas is not controlling them, and give them security and dignity. But we have to find an alternative to Hamas, and that's something that I think everyone in this negotiations has failed. So I'm really hopeful that they will focus on that for the sake of both Israelis and Palestinians and every innocent person living in this land.
Hen Mazzig, a senior fellow at the Tel Aviv Institute, thanks for joining us on Rising.
Thanks for having me.